Hungarian Folk Tales. The Two Princes with Hair of Gold. Once upon a time there was a young prince who left his home looking for a bride. He was riding through a village when three girls watched him pass. The eldest girl said, "If that prince married me, I would make him wear a linen shirt." That was a joke, of course. The middle girl said, "I would make him sleep on a sack of straw." And the youngest girl said, "Well, if he married me, I would give him 2 sons with hair of gold." The prince's coachman overheard all of this and he told his master. So the prince said, "Go and get the girl who said she would give me 2 boys with hair of gold." The coachman called the girl over and the prince told her to join him in his royal carriage. Time quickly passed and the young queen became heavy with child, but before she could give birth, the king had to go and fight. There was an old witch in the court who had teeth of iron and she had a daughter. She would have liked the king to have married her daughter, but when he married another, she hated the young queen very much. When the king went off to war, she said to herself, "Just wait, queen, you will pay for all of this." The day came when the queen gave birth to 2 beautiful sons with hair of gold. The witch with the iron teeth stole them and put 2 puppies in their place. Then she buried the 2 boys opposite each other in the ground around the fish pond. The king was told the news that the queen had given birth to 2 puppies and he had also lost the battle that day. This and the bad news about his wife made him very angry. He wrote a letter and sent it home. In the letter, he ordered that the queen and the 2 puppies should be thrown into the pond where a great whale lived. As soon as the messenger was sent away, he began to regret what he had ordered to be done. When the king arrived home from the battle, he married the witch's daughter. 2 trees bearing golden pears grew on the spot where the 2 princes with hair of gold were buried, and the king liked nothing better than to sit in their shade. The witch did not like this and told her daughter to tell the king to cut the pear trees down, and she nagged him until he had both trees cut down. From their wood 2 beds were made, one for the king and one for the queen. The witch ordered the splinters, twigs and branches to be burned. But no one noticed a passing goat that gobbled up 2 small twigs from the tree. When the queen and king were sleeping in their beds one night, the queen's bed asked the other, "Dear brother, is that weight not too heavy for you?" And the other bed answered, "It's not heavy at all, as my burden is my dear father. But mine's too heavy, as I have to bear my enemy." The witch was not asleep and she overheard the beds talking. The next morning she ordered her daughter to burn the 2 beds lest her sin come to light. The 2 beds were burned that very day. The witch with the iron teeth and her daughter were now convinced that they faced no more threats. But then the goat gave birth to 2 kids. The 2 little kids had hair of gold. The witch was shocked when she learned of this. She told her daughter to ask the king to have the 2 kids killed, and she could only recover if she ate their meat. The goat kids were killed, and the witch ordered that every strand of their golden hair should be cleared away. But as the kids' innards were washed in the stream, 2 little pieces turned into 2 goldfish. The 2 fish grew and grew until they were caught by a fisherman one day. He pulled the net to shore and his joy turned to shock when he saw the 2 goldfish turn into 2 handsome young men with hair of gold. two princes had been buried 17 years before, and so now the two young men were 17. They duly thanked the fisherman for catching them and asked him to take them to the king, as they knew a fine poem they wanted to recite for him. They knew they would be rewarded for their performance, and they promised to give this reward to the fisherman for his troubles. The fisherman shook all over with fear, but he agreed to take the two young men in the hope that he would receive a rich reward. The young men were announced to the king, and the king gave the order to let them in. The witch with the iron teeth saw what would happen, and she tried her best to keep them out. But the king eventually met the two youths in spite of all her tricks, and she tried to follow them in and convince the king not to believe the two young men. But the king resisted, saying, "Don't meddle, mother-in-law. This is my business and not yours." The two young men recited a poem to the king, and in that poem they told him their mother's story and their own. They told the king that the whale had swallowed their mother alive and that she was still alive inside the whale's belly. They told the king to catch the whale and they would recover their mother. They also asked the king to richly reward the fisherman for his good deed. The witch with the iron teeth constantly tried to interrupt the youths and did all she could to make the king disbelieve them. But the king paid all his attention to the two young men. The first thing the king did was to order that the whale be caught. The queen emerged from the whale alive, and the king begged her to forgive him. She had survived the ordeal intact. Then the king ordered his two sons and wife and the witch and her daughter to appear before the royal council. The king put the question to the council: "What does a witch deserve who tried to kill two boys and their dear mother, ruin their reputation and deprive a father of his family? What should her punishment be?" So the royal council ordered that the witch and her daughter should be tied to the tails of two horses and dragged through the city. Then they had to be chopped into four and their bodies nailed to the four corners of the city. The queen and her two sons begged for mercy for both of them, but to no avail, and the sentence was duly carried out. The king gave a rich reward to the fishermen. There was a fabulous feast, and the people of the land and the royal family lived happily ever after. Hungarian Folk Tales. The Two Old Friends. Once upon a time there was a poor man. He was very poor and had a lot of children. It was near Christmas time and they had nothing to eat at home. So he had the idea to go out into the forest and collect nuts. Out he went and collected half a sack of nuts. He then took the nuts to the town, where he planned to sell them. As he got close to the town, he met an old friend. "Good morning, old friend. Good morning, old friend. Where are you going? I've got some nuts in this sack. I thought I might exchange them for some food for the children. Christmas is here and we have nothing to eat at home. I've got half a sack of poppy seeds and I also have a lot of children. I would like to exchange it as we don't have anything to eat at home either. Look, old friend, let's exchange the sacks without looking at what's inside. And they quickly exchanged sacks. Then one of the old friends arrived home. Well, children, I got half a sack of nuts in exchange for that half a sack of ashes. I shall pour them out for you to eat. He emptied the sack, and it was full of oak apples. What a man! He cheated me. He will pay for this. The other old friend also arrived home. Wife, look, I brought half a sack of poppy seeds for that half a sack of oak apples. The children were so excited that they danced around the table. The wife brought out a giant bowl. Pour those poppy seeds out. Poured them out, but they were ashes. What a man! Why did he cheat me? So he set off to the town to meet his old friend. They both arrived and began to threaten each other with sticks. What a man! Why did you cheat me? They began to fight, but after a while, one of them began to laugh. Why did you cheat me? We could never cheat each other. Let's join forces and work together. A rich man gave them each a job and employed them for the last 3 days of the year. When the 3 days were up, they went to the man and asked for their wages. The rich man gave the order to bring each of them a plate full of gold. They were both very happy. They both got their wages and they both set off home. They were poor, but at the same time, they were cunning men. Look, old friend, we should go back to the pit where the gold was kept and we can take more of it during the night. So they took an empty sack and went back. How will we go down there? It looks very deep. So they fastened their belts together and one of them lowered the other man down into the pit. The one in the pit quickly gathered up as much gold as he could. Let me know when the sack is full. I'll pull it up first and then I'll pull you up. But the man in the pit had a better idea. If I send the gold up, he'll run away. I have to stay down here, but then they'll catch me. He put a lot of gold into the sack, but he did not fill it up. Then he climbed into the sack with the gold. Now you can pull. As they were nearing the forest, the man in the sack said, "Put me down, old friend. I know I must be heavy." "Oh, you are here too? Of course. I didn't want to stay down there. Let's have a rest. I'm very tired." "Very well. Let's have a rest." The man was so tired that he sat down and fell fast asleep. So the other man picked the sack up and began to run away. When he awoke, the other man had gone. "What can I do?" He's taken it now. Very well. Then he cut a stick, tied a thread to it, and cracked it like a whip. Get on with you! And he made the noises of an ox cart. The other man heard the noises. Just in time. I'm so tired. I shall put my sack on that cart too. Then he saw his old friend. Old friend, we could never cheat each other. No, we couldn't. Let's have a rest, old friend. You must be tired too. I really am very tired. Then they had a rest. Now the one who had taken the sack fell fast asleep. The other man saw that his old friend was fast asleep, and he took the sack and ran all the way home. There he told his wife, "Put this gold quickly in a box. Take the hoe, come with me to the cemetery, bury me, and if my old friend comes to see me, tell him I am dead." So they went to the cemetery. The woman carefully buried him under a thin layer of soil so that he would come to no harm. Then she returned home, where she held her head as if she was crying. When the other man awoke, he could not find his friend. He knew that he must have gone home, and so he hurried to his house. "Good evening, dear lady." "Good evening, kind sir," she said in her saddest voice. "What's the matter? Why are you so sad? Where is my old friend?" "Your old friend? He died. I have just come home from the cemetery." "Poor friend. I'm really sorry that I couldn't attend his funeral. Dear lady, lend me a hoe and I'll go and tidy up his grave." "No need for that." "It's tidy enough." "It's an old friend's duty to tidy up his old friend's grave." So they went to the cemetery. The man saw the fresh grave and didn't dig with a hoe, but started to stamp about like a bull, clawing at the soil. "Moo, moo, moo," he said, and he hit the ground with the hoe. "Stop that bull," said a voice from the grave. "If you dig me up, my old friend will find me." "Moo, moo, moo," the other man said again, and he got hard to work with the hoe. "Stop it, bull. My old friend will find me." "I've already found you, old friend. Come out." Oh, well, we could never cheat each other. No, we never could. Then they went home, divided the gold between both families, and had a very merry Christmas. Hungarian Folk Tales. First the dance, then the feast. Once upon a time there lived a poor man. He had even more children than a sieve has holes, and he owned nothing more than a small house. But then the poor man was forced to move out of his home because his landlord wanted so much corn in payment for his rent that he had to leave. And so the poor man decided to hide. In the forest, he met an old man, and the old man asked the poor man where he was going. The poor man told him about his landlord's cruelty. Don't be so sad, poor man, because I shall give you a fiddle, and whenever you play it, your landlord will dance." The poor man happily took the fiddle, but told the old man that he was still very hungry indeed and he could not return home with a fiddle. Then the old man gave him the gift of a table. "Whatever you wish for will appear on this table." So the poor man slapped his hand hard on the table and shouted, "Porridge and beans." And when the poor man's belly was full, he set off to go home. When the poor man arrived, he discovered that his cruel landlord had already evicted his dear wife and darling children. "Now I shall pay and you shall dance," and the poor man began to fiddle. And the poor man's landlord danced and danced and danced and grew very tired indeed. But as the poor man played as long as he could, his landlord kept on dancing. When the poor man took a rest, the landlord ran back to the mayor's office to report that he wouldn't stop fiddling. But the poor man followed the landlord back to the office and began to fiddle again. "Dance, landlord, dance!" Then the landlord danced into the office and shouted. The men in the office soon grew bored with the poor man's fiddling and they ordered him to leave at once. "Now you should dance too," the poor man commanded. And everyone in the mayor's office began to dance around. They put down their pens and danced a merry jig together. Then the policeman heard the news and ran to the mayor's office. "Get out of here, poor man!" But the poor man shouted, "Now you should dance too!" And the policemen all began to dance around. The women sent word for policemen to come from the next village, and these policemen soon arrived and tried to chase the poor man away. "Now you should dance too!" Now the whole marketplace was filled with people dancing around. Then the soldiers marched up and the poor man said, "Now you should dance too, as best you can." News of the dancing finally found its way to the king's ears. "Now the king should dance too," the poor man demanded. So the king joined in the frantic dance. The queen of the kingdom contacted the king from the neighbouring land, and this king arrived with his army, and the country was soon filled with his foreign soldiers. The second king called upon the poor man to desist. The two dancing kings put their crowns down at his feet and gave him their lands. So peace returned and the dancing eventually ended. Now all the dancers had grown so hungry and asked the poor man to feed them at last. The poor man took out his table, slapped it and said, "Porridge and beans." Then everyone sat down to enjoy the meal, and the tiny table made more and more and more of the food. The people standing next to the table were lucky, but the ones at the back could not reach the porridge pot, and the people pushed the kings into the beans. The king's shouts were soon drowned out, and both kings drowned in the big pot of beans. No one felt sad that the kings had gone, and all pushed forward to eat their fill. Everyone ate and ate till all was gone, and they all had a splendid time indeed.